ITA for kicking a disabled girl out of my D&D party? I-27F. Recently made a group for D&D with people I don't know well quite yet. I mostly just collected phone numbers at a church party of anyone who was interested, and we ended up with a party of 7 players. I was worried about the number of people since I'm rather inexperienced as a DM, but the first couple sessions were actually really great. In comes N25F. She messaged me a couple weeks after I first sent out invites for a Discord server saying her link no longer worked. I didn't know her well, but I did have a brief conversation with her when I was first recruiting people. She had told me she was in a car wreck when she was young and suffered brain damage, and that she had a seizure disorder. She speaks slowly and tends to interrupt conversation regularly, but otherwise seemed nice. I told her I was at my limit with 7 players, but I could let her into the Discord server. But I couldn't let her join the party yet because I didn't know if I could handle more players. She said she understood, and I thought that was that, and joins the Discord server. The next time I put out a message to plan for a session, she started sending weird messages like, "I'm so sorry I'm in the way, I hope you guys have fun," and "I don't want to be a burden, I'll shut up." I had to tell her multiple times to stop. I don't know how the players felt about it, but it made me uncomfortable, and I had no idea how to handle it. I tried to ask a few players how they felt about it during the session. I didn't want to sound like a jerk, so I didn't voice some of my bigger concerns like her behavior on the Discord server, and her tendency to not let others talk. Nobody said anything against her joining, so I relented, and joins the group. I messaged her the next day, and we started putting a character together for her. I had gotten some pre-made character for other players since they've never played before, and this first dungeon we're doing is just to teach the mechanics of D&D, so I helped make her character. No big deal. Except, she really wanted to play a high elf wild magic sorcerer that was very obviously based on her, including a weirdly specific detail of the elf sorcerer having a dent in her head. I tried to warn her that sorcerers are a bit harder to play, and might not be suitable for a beginner who may need help, but she completely ignored my warning, saying she had played before, and she could handle it. I had no reason to believe she couldn't handle it. Sure, I had to do everything to put her character together, but maybe that's because of her parents' weirdly strict internet access on her devices. She said she couldn't access a PDF I linked her to, but I got her character sheet together and tried to make things as streamlined as possible, even making cards for her spells because I was a bit worried. I forgot to mention a few additional concerns that became relevant the day of the first session. She had told me early on that she couldn't drive. No big deal. She could get a ride. But then she told me she had to be in bed by 10 p.m., which meant she would leave by 9 p.m. and we start at 8 p.m. Sure, fine. Her dad can come drive her instead of making another player drive her home after just 1 hour. Except her dad didn't drive her. She got one of the girls in the group to drive her. Kind-hearted girl Sarah. Seemed visibly uncomfortable when she arrived with, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to think about it. And then I noticed that and was all over one of the guys, Chad, in the group who seemed uncomfortable but resigned to his fate. Chad would sit on one side of the room and she would follow. She even at one point, loudly repeated 3 separate times that she had a dream of Chad proposing to her. I guess they had known each other since middle school, and he hasn't told her he has no interest. Chad ended up helping her with her character sheet the entire session, which wasn't ideal but it worked. I was mostly able to ignore her constant interrupting and the fact that she had told the same story multiple times anytime nobody else was actively talking. It really could have gone worse. Thankfully, her parents seemed to have given her an extension on her bedtime because she was apparently fine being out after 11 p.m. as long as she called them. Chad somehow ended up giving her a ride home. She refused a ride from Sarah, who drove her there, because she just didn't feel comfortable in a car with a stranger. And came to the next session in a costume because it's close to Halloween and she was having a great time. Except she was now making Chad take off her jewelry. She had a crown and some bracers. She was clearly interested in Chad and her behavior towards him was weird to say the least, and started refusing help from anyone but Chad, and gameplay had slowed down significantly. I don't know if I was projecting, but it seemed like several other players were getting uncomfortable with her constant chatter. She also started insisting that nobody curse, focusing around 2 specific players that I have since learned she didn't like around her, and would make loud remarks about how gross it was when I described an enemy death. She also apparently started writing a book about our group and made sure to tell Chad multiple times. She once again insisted on Chad driving her. One of the other players, Goff, had mentioned he had a space-themed adventure module, and for some reason that stuck with N. She messaged me about trying to run her own campaign, and I was already annoyed with her but didn't want to be rude. She sent me some AI-generated outline for what a campaign could be based on Peter Pan, and argued with me when I expressed concern about her ability to run a campaign, let alone make one on her own. By this point I was feeling very done with her, and told her she couldn't run a campaign if she still couldn't figure out where her HP was on her character sheet. This was when she decided to suddenly start listening to me about my earlier concerns with her character. I told her to find access to a player's manual and make a fighter or a bard. She said she would, but she did not. In the meantime I reached out to Chad and Sarah to see how they felt about Anne. Chad was more or less used to her, but he was annoyed and admitted he wanted her gone. Sarah took a bit more prompting to get an honest answer from, and she mostly said she didn't want to drive in again. Another player admitted that they liked the group significantly less after she joined, but didn't want to seem mean. So, I took action. Here's where I'm not totally sure if what I did was the right thing. I asked Anne if she was capable of playing D&D without help. She said she didn't know, and I told her I didn't think our group could accommodate her needs. She was clearly upset, apologizing for being a burden and saying, "I just feel like I'm a burden to literally everybody in my life." The main reason I joined the group was to find a sense of belonging. But I honestly feel like I'm being kicked out of the group. I'm used to it though. After a bit more conversation, I realized I had to say directly that I didn't want her to come anymore. She kept trying to apologize in weird ways. I told her it's fine to feel upset, but what she was doing felt emotionally manipulative and she needed to stop. Update: Anne's primary caregiver is starting a group for her. I hope that this one is smaller with someone able to dedicate time to help her. Am I the asshole? Edit: girl is now, and because people are right, that's weird. None of the names are real and I didn't think about it. Also, remove the mention of me having gone on a date with Chad because, while it did influence me, it was not why I asked her not to come. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Kinda sounds like she was mostly just there for Chad anyways. OP's response: I wouldn't be surprised. And it seems like Chad has never made any boundaries with her. Commenter 2. I have autism. Disabled people can be rude, inconsiderate, and need to have boundaries set just like everyone else. Nobody gets a free pass to act like a total weirdo without call-out. I understand she's probably lonely and wants friends. She also cannot force people to like her, and being overbearing and difficult isn't the best outreach strategy. Commenter 3. And long-time DM here. It sounds like you gave her plenty of chances to adapt. You let your players also figure out if they were okay or not with her before asking them all. New players can take some extra care, which is no problem. Being disabled on top of that I'm sure is difficult, given what her disability may have impacted. It would be fine if she was able to hear your criticism and adapt as needed, even if it was a little slow going, but she made no real effort. which then becomes less about her being disabled and more about her contribution to the group. Unless her disability specifically impacts all the areas needed to fit into the social setting of a D&D game, in which case if you can't accommodate her, that's fine. She should seek a disability-friendly group. Not saying you're not disability-friendly, I'm specifically meaning groups with other disabled folks who may understand better. Not all disability people need the extra help obviously, but either she genuinely does, which is fine, your group just isn't for her then, or she's leaning into being helpless for Chad. Whether she realizes it or not, a bunch of her commentary is manipulative and she seems comfortable using that to try and get her way. Maybe it works in her home life, but not everyone will humor that. I had a player like this, it was a learned behavior and she worked on it. She's disabled too. In the future, if this happens, you might want to gently address things early on. The time frame from the sound of it seems drawn out a bit and you didn't communicate too much until you got fed up. You won't know if someone can change upon being informed if you aren't upfront sooner. And it's your job as the DM to be direct, and you can still be kind doing it, for the sake of your players. You might get more helpful answers in the D&D subreddit too. Good luck with your game, OP. Ops response. Thank you for this. Wired Abyss here, what are your thoughts, viewer? Please follow if you enjoyed. I never generate fake stories using AI. Never have unnecessary multiple parts. I've also started posting on YT. Check bio for more info.